Just coming in and reading your comments. Really happy to see all of you guys tonight. How are you? Can you see me too? Hello, hello. Session 1. Hi, everybody. Yay! Okay, you can see me. Hi, everybody. I am so happy to see you. Welcome to session 1 of Soul Shift. Oh, you're so welcome, Cheryl. I'm glad you were there today. How are you guys? It's really lovely to see you. I am so happy that you are here. Truly, truly. I do want to apologize. Alexis let me know. I wasn't, it was before I logged on. But I understand that one of you was really upset about my mentioning of something that happened when my dog passed away during our readings today. I had mentioned a picture, and it really upset her. So I wouldn't have anticipated that. I apologize if I had thought, I mean, I hope you know, I would never intentionally say anything to upset any of you. I've never had anyone react strongly to the mention of that before, but I certainly will not mention it again, certainly not tonight, and I will not mention it again in the future. So I take your feedback, but I sincerely apologize. I really did not intend. So please know I'm very sorry from my heart to yours. I've never had anyone react like that, and I completely understand and respect you, and I just want you to know that's not what we're going to be talking about tonight. So I hope you can forgive me. You know, in my role, it's tricky because we talk about a lot of different things, and I work with you guys who are in different stages of your process on a lot of different topics. So it's easy for me to kind of step into a landmine, you know what I mean, without knowing it's a landmine, because again, and a lot of things I can anticipate. There's a lot of things I don't talk about specifically because I don't want to trigger anyone. But in any case, I just want you to know I certainly will be much more careful around that, in particular for you, Cynthia, and I apologize. But it's interesting because this is actually related to what we're going to talk about tonight in an interesting way. And you guys, you didn't really miss anything. It's just that we have a particular, we have people in our community who are struggling around the loss of pets. And I shared a little bit about the loss of one of my pets, and it really was a trigger for this person. And that's not my work here to trigger anyone. So I just wanted to publicly apologize because it had come up in this feed before I went live. And what I do, part of what you should know about me and my teaching, I was trained in a methodology called case in point. And I don't think I've ever really talked too much about this, but this is how I teach. So the case in point methodology is used primarily in graduate school. And what you do as a case in point teacher is you have your curriculum for the day. So let's say today we were talking about bougainvillea plants, okay? And let's say I had a lecture planned for you where I was going to teach you all about bougainvillea. But someone was having a challenge in class. Someone was going through a grieving process, or their heart was broken, or they came to class crying. In a case in point methodology, so a traditional classroom, I would just keep talking about bougainvillea. And if somebody was crying or having a problem, or there was a dispute in class or anything like that, a traditional professor would just stay to her lecture on bougainvillea, would never mention it, and would just kind of sweep it under the rug and move on. Does that make sense? A case in point teaching model says you now have to focus the class content on what's going on. Because until you focus on what's going on, no one's going to really be able to pay attention to the actual topic that you're trying to teach. So a case in point classroom acknowledges not just the curriculum, what we need to teach that you're here to learn, but it acknowledges that there's other things going on too. And what you learn in a case in point method, I don't know if this is interesting to you, but what you learn in a case in point methodology is 9 times out of 10, and I'm going to tell you something, A lot of you are here training as priestesses. A priestess is a spiritual leader, okay? If you're here training to lead in a spiritual context, what I'm telling you right now is very important. What is happening in a group 9 times out of 10 has everything to do with what that group is learning. 9 times out of 10. So you may say, well, this isn't relevant. Not you, but like someone could say, just because a student is upset doesn't mean we should stop talking about bougainvillea. In a case in point methodology, what you end up discovering is that energy is energy. So a student who comes into your class and is upset is actually there as a teacher to then create a new level of conversation that ultimately ties you back to what you were going to talk about in the first place. And the reason I'm mentioning this right now is it's related to what we're going to talk about tonight. Because tonight is how we manage change as leaders, as priestesses. How we manage change. Everything in your worksheet, which if you didn't have a chance to print out, it's okay. It's exactly right, Annette. It's just like case studies in nursing. I was a guest professor for a nursing class, and I had to bring a case study. So I very much remember, we're all here, right? We're all here to learn and to grow. And sometimes what seems irrelevant is actually the core of the curriculum. And that's a case in point methodology. So if you're a teacher, ultimately at some point you have to decide, do you want to be case in point or do you want to be traditional? If you're case in point, then everything in your classroom is a teaching. I'm a teaching, you're a teaching. What those 2 students in the corner are talking about is a teaching. The color of the walls is a teaching. Everything becomes a teaching. Interesting stuff, right? I was teaching on 9/11 too, Lori. And I don't know if you remember this story, but the class that I was teaching English as a second language to a class of Muslim students who were here. They had put them into this program, all these students who had immigrated together, and I was teaching them English as a second language. And it was the only time I had a classroom like that in my teaching career. Like, really, on 9/11? And it was case in point. So I just stopped everything we were doing that whole week, and I'm like, so now we're gonna do this. Like, now you're gonna learn about what it's like to be in an ESL classroom on 9/11 in the United States, right? I mean, you're gonna learn that. It's very feminine, that's right. These are your worksheets for tonight. So let me ring my bell. I have a new bell! I've been waiting for these bells to get here. This is the bell I wanted for class, but we had to have them made. So anyway, this is the bell you will hear me ringing from now on and forever and ever. It's my peacock bell. Session 1 is in progress. That's right. So this is your worksheet for October, Cycle of Emotional Response to Change. And we're going to go through tonight the 5 phases of emotional response to change: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Because here's the thing, no matter who you are, everything in your life changed this year. No matter who you are. Even if you don't even know what the word COVID means, your life changed this year because of the fact that it's affected me and it's affected, people around the world, and it's affected the economy, and it's affected employment, and it's affected everything. So even if you have no idea what a pandemic is and you live in a place where COVID's never happened, your life changed this year in some way. So what's interesting to me is we planned this curriculum, my team and I, in December. I don't know how we knew that come October, it's total case in point methodology, but I don't know how that we knew that come October, this is exactly what we would need to be talking about. And honestly, I will tell you, candidly, I'm building your curriculum for next year right now. And it's, the spirit guides want it to be all about alchemy, and I'm just like, what are we in for? As I'm writing out each month's curriculum, like I'm working on September 2021 right now, and I'm just channeling it, and I'm thinking like, am I foretelling something? Because I feel like we foretold a lot in our curriculum. this year, don't you think? Each month, because again, everything that you are receiving this whole year was planned in December last year. I had never heard the word COVID in December. It was January before I heard anything of this, right? So anyway, it's interesting. Now, our shadow work for tonight is going to take us through two different concepts. Acknowledgement number 8, which says that you need to transmute your shadow. We're going to talk about what that means. And acknowledgement number 9, which means you need to integrate it. After this month, my expectation, how do I phrase this? After this month, I as your teacher, am expecting a shift in you, in the group, in your relationships, because this is the month where we finally say, it's all welcome here. Yeah, you'll get a sneak peek of your curriculum in about 4 weeks when we open registration for 2021. Tonight, everything I share with you is a little bit of tough love. Because it's time to set aside any residual excuses or fears or anxieties or illusions, because there just frankly isn't time for it anymore. And our guide for this month is Lilith. And I'm going to be teaching you all about Lilith. You're going to get a masterclass in Lilith. And let me tell you, that's not easy to do, because what I'm tying together is the Kabbalah with the Christian Bible and Mesopotamian mythology to create, and I'm going back to the Talmud and some of the really ancient Judaic texts too, because we have more of an education of Lilith in those texts than we do in the modern Christian texts. And well, Katie, the good news is I'm not changing. I should let you know this as a public announcement. I'm not raising cost of programs next year because of the pandemic. My costs have increased. And every year my staff gets a raise at the end of the year, and so my costs increase every year. But this is the second year, I believe, where we are not increasing the cost of programs. And I'm really proud of that. We're finding a way to absorb those costs rather than pass that along to you. So if you want to stay in programs next year, Crystal Masters will still be $30 and Soul Shift will still be $90. There isn't going to be an increase in cost. So it's good for you guys to know that in case you're starting to plan or think about things. Sometimes we increase the price of programs, but we're not. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Yeah, I can't imagine raising the cost of programs. And in fact, on our stones, I don't know if you've noticed, but we've lowered our prices on crystals, especially tumbled stones and natural stones, by 50% in most cases. So we're actually trying to lower our costs of items and programs where we can, instead of raising the costs. So not that that's going to make a huge difference for everybody, but it's part of our strategic goals. So yeah, you're welcome. I want to make sure to announce that to you. The only thing that's going up next year, Crystal Masters tools are going to be $30 instead of $20, and the reason is India's costs have gone up, and I can't get anything carved for $20. Like I don't know how I did it this year. People were doing favors for us and things like that, but I can't do it for so little. There's absolutely no way. We tried to have things made for next year, and people were like, there's no way we can do that. And we want people to feel compensated for their work. So Crystal Masters tools are going to go up by $10, but other than that, there's no price increases for 2021. That's the best we can do. Yeah, I know. And the Canadian exchange rate is nuts. The New Zealand exchange rate is nuts. Like, there's a lot of exchange rates that are crazy. So we're trying really hard. But I just wanted to say that to you publicly now, so that if you're like, I don't know if I can do next year or whatever, you at least know what you're coming into and you can plan. So I'm glad. We really tried to keep it at $20. Honestly, every conversation we have was like, what can we do for $20? It just literally was almost impossible. So thank you for seeing us and how we're trying to keep it steady. Yeah, so you're getting 4 certificates in Soul Shift. You're getting certified as an Angelifos practitioner. You're getting certified as an initiated priestess. You're getting certified as a crystal healer. And then you're getting certified as a graduate of Soul Shift. So you're getting, and the 4 certificates are gorgeous. Gabriel designed the most beautiful art for them, you guys. They're going to look so gorgeous on your wall. So all of that is in place. Anyway, sorry. I didn't want to take time out of class to talk about that, but then if I don't talk about it, then people don't know. So anyway, let's not talk about that anymore. Let's move on. Anyway, back to what we were talking about before. The reason that we are working with Lilith this month, and this is really important, so hear me on this, and I will repeat it again at session 3, but the reason we are working with Lilith this month, okay? Inside of you, let me say me. Inside of me, there are 2 of me, okay? And I can answer more questions about programs at the end of tonight's session. So keep all those questions, because I'm not looking at the feed like I'm looking at you. But I want to make sure that we answer your questions. Yeah, you have to be in the program the whole year to get the certificate. So make sure you've done the whole year. That's the only important thing to tell you. Okay. Inside of me are 2 me's. And just like inside of you, there are 2 yous, right? Maybe there's more than 2, but there's at least 2. There is the light aspect of you, and there is the shadow aspect of you, okay? We're working with Morgana, of course, but we're working with Lilith. Morgana is something of a guide for us, but I wanted to do a little bit of Lilith work because Lilith's energy is different for me. So hopefully you're resonating with her too. So what I mean by that is there's the light aspect of you and there's the shadow aspect of you. The legend of Lilith is that she was Adam's first wife, okay? And she became displeased with the fact that even though they were created as equals, Adam was trying to make her subservient to him. And so she fled the Garden of Eden. And then Adam later took a second wife who was Eve, and it was fashioned from his rib. So the first legend is that Adam had his first wife who was created from the same clay that he was, okay? And the second legend is that he had a second wife who was created from his rib. And so she developed as part of him or from him, but she wasn't equal to him. Does that make sense? The Morrigan for me is my shadow aspect. Well, so we decided to focus more on one guide for this month. Originally, we were going to do La Katrina, Morgana, and Lilith as almost a triple goddess, but it seemed a little complicated, and we wanted to really dig into the shadow work. So of the 3 of those, the deepest shadow work we can do this month is around Lilith. So I chose to focus there. We will talk about La Katrina and Morrigan at session 3, because those are the 3 dark goddesses, I would say, from the underlying traditions. And then you can choose really who you want to journey with, or which one resonates more with you. Does that make sense? I know, Candace said that Lilith has been stalking her in the shadows since July. I think that Lilith's been stalking a lot of us. So she's not a goddess that I invoke or that I work with very often, but here's where Lilith comes in for me. And this is how I want to start tonight's session with you, because it's part of the transmutation and integration process. And I really want to be clear about what that means, okay? Every single one of us has parts of us that are resentful and that are angry, and that feel that we are being treated unjustly, and that are not willing to tolerate those circumstances. And that part of us is a juicy, creative, powerful part. The part of you that gets angry around injustice, the part of you that gets angry when you're not treated equally or respectfully, right? The part of you that gets frustrated, and we're going to do more of the nuts and bolts around Lilith at the third session, okay? But there's part of you that resonates with this. And what a lot of people, and I was also taught this in my early practice too, and remember I was raised Christian, right? What I was taught is if you have these feelings, you push them down, you don't show them, that's not ladylike, right? That's not, you need to just, put on a happy face, and this is how it is, and life isn't fair, and all of these things, right? Those were the things that I was told. And I've always had this warrior aspect in me. It's probably because they named me after a warrior goddess. I always laugh at my mom because she's like, we chose your name and then you were a really difficult child. And in hindsight, it might not have been the best thing for us to name you after a pagan goddess of war. And I'm like, you think? That's right. So I get very angry when I see injustice or people being treated unfairly, or when I get treated disrespectfully. Like that creates a level of frustration within me that's hard to harness. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. No, my mom really talks about it like that. She's like, maybe it wasn't exactly the right decision to do that. And I'm like, 47 years later, this isn't a productive conversation. Like, where are we going with this, right? In any case, and I'm really telling you this, whether this is your first class with me or your last class with me, whether you do Soul Shift next year or you don't do Soul Shift next year, I'm going to tell you something right now that is just, for me, it's a bottom line. At some point, you have to make peace with that part of your consciousness. And in my opinion, it has to be given a voice. It has to be given a way to express itself. It has to be given a place and a time. It has to. Because if it doesn't, whatever you don't allow to be expressed outwardly, does this make sense? Then becomes expressed inwardly. And I absolutely believe with all my heart that all of that rage and that injustice and are you kidding me and why is it, all of that, when we don't express it outwardly and we just get quiet and push it down, what happens with that is it ultimately is the root of illness and disease and pain. And we wonder why so many empaths have chronic pain. How many empaths do you know that have never experienced chronic pain? Because I'll tell you something, it's very few for me. Most of the powerhouse empaths in my life are in chronic pain. And you might say, well, I don't know, whatever you might say about that. But the reality is, a lot of them are. Most of the folks in my life who have fibromyalgia are the most gifted, talented, profound psychics, mediums, healers I've ever met. And it's because, at some point, they did that. They took all of this, what should have been expressed outwardly and given a voice and a place and a space, and they turned it inward. Part of what I love, okay, and you may look at me and think, God, Athena, you're nuts. When the beautiful spirit in our group tonight said, that was hard for me to hear, about pets crossing and stuff like that. Do you know why I think that's so powerful and why it's part of our teaching tonight? That needed to be expressed. And this is a good, solid, safe container to do it in. Because otherwise that just gets put in some pocket somewhere, and then what does it do? It just sits and it ferments and it foments and you can't, at least for me, I can't express a lot of my fear and frustration and anxiety and sadness and grief, and I can't do that everywhere. And frankly, I don't want to, you know what I mean? But in the places where I can, I need to be able to say, that bothered me, or that's too much, or if you don't ever have a place or a space where you can say it, this has to come up. And hopefully you have a place, you do, here, right? You can say, you know what, that was too much for me, or I don't know, that didn't sit well with me, or whatever. And here, part of the learning is, I'm glad you said something. Do you know? I mean, now in a lot of spaces, people would get defensive and go, well, you know, this, that, whatever, right? So it's hard to kind of speak your truth sometimes if you don't have a container where people will say, you know, I get it. And if you don't have some time and space in your life where you can, right, say it and get it out, then it just sits and it forms a pocket over here and it forms a pocket over here and it forms a pocket over there. And then 10 or 15 years later, maybe it all comes out at some point, right? So I just want to say, I think it's really profound to be able to actually say what's on your heart and your mind. And I've had people in the past say things like, well, there's too much of people's personal stuff in the Facebook group, and you know, people are oversharing and stuff like that. I just have to disagree. I mean, I at the end of the day, I think these spaces are so incredibly critical to be able to say. And I've had my own moments too in this group where I've said, you know, this X, Y, and Z is really bothering me or really upsetting me, and I've cried and I've shared my own like really intense pain, and I've been able to do that. And if we can't share that level of vulnerability, then we're not actually doing the work. Then what that means is I'm over here preaching one thing to you and telling you, oh, go find some other place to do that, which actually kind of doesn't work, right? Now, and that's true, Candace said it's how you share. So, you know, you don't want to just spew, you know what I mean, and just try to give your problems to other people to solve and sort and figure out. That's not fair either. But if you're doing your work and you're kind of saying what's going on, like, I think that's actually pretty cool. And then the priestessing comes in, right, to know how to respond. Do you know? So you don't take things personally. You just go, okay, sorry, you know, I hear you, and I'll try to do better next time without taking things personally. So there's a give and a take. It's how the frustration is expressed, and it's also how it's received. But if you can get to a place where you don't take it personally, so it just moves through you. It's like, okay, you know, here we are. And that allows you to create space for people too. I wouldn't be talking about all this if this wasn't partly a class in spiritual leadership, but it is. And this is partly how you create space for people to have the integrity of their experience. And some people don't have any other time, place, or space where they can say, this is how I'm feeling, this is how it affected me. Does this make sense? So, and you may not agree, or you may think, well, I have a different perspective on that, which is totally okay. But I do want to open you up to that thinking too, because we have to have a place where we can say, I'm not okay, this doesn't work, I'm having a hard time, I'm still really struggling. This isn't, you know, I don't know what to do with this. I'm kind of in this place, and what do I do with it? And have a place to sort that. Yeah, but you know, again, to Candace's point, which I think is the essence of the core of it, is it's how you share. It's not that you share, it's how you share. And I think a lot of you have really learned this year how to share in a way that's really productive. And I see you. This is part of the work that we do. This is part of the work that we do. And I'm grateful that I have you here to do the work. Okay, so that's the number one thing I want to say about that. So on your worksheet, under acknowledgement, when you transmute, so a lot of you have asked, so what is transmutation? You know what I mean? Like, how do I actually transmute something? The hardest part about COVID-19 is that every single person on this planet that I know has had to confront their own death this year. And whether they can name that or not, every single person is experiencing an intense level of anxiety about what it means to be fundamentally human. And the ultimate shadow work is to be able to confront that fear and integrate it. I think I'm taking a pause right here intentionally. every single thing that we have been learning and talking about and discussing and practicing and thinking about together, crying about together, has all come down to this. It is the core of the root chakra. Are you going to make it? And the only way, and I'm really like, I hope you can see this moment for me right now. The only way to transcend this moment is to make peace. I'm going to say it again because this is really important. And I don't get this serious with you guys very often. The entire world has had to confront the question of whether they will survive this year. And the chances are you will. But every single person I know has confronted the question, will I survive? Which is the number one question asked by the base chakra. Your most foundational chakra that formed when you were born. It formed when you were in the womb until you were 5 years old. You were deciding, are these parents going to keep me alive? Am I going to be able to survive? Do I have the food I need? Does anyone care about me? Am I all alone here? That is all you thought about until you were 5. Am I loved? Am I worthwhile? Are these people competent? Do I have food on a regular schedule? Right? And for the first time for a lot of us since we were 5, so for me it's 42 years, we've had to ask ourselves this year, are these people competent? Do I have food? Do I have toilet paper? I'm actually being serious. This is the core of everything for the entire planet, whether people can acknowledge it or see it or not. And I'm telling you right now, okay? If you integrate this, and in my own life, I've been working with 2 teachers. I'm working with both of them tomorrow. I've been working with 2 teachers twice a month since January. The first one, I didn't know why I reached out to her. Now I know. This is the whole focus of my work with my own teachers this year, so that I can learn some somatic techniques to bring you next year to be able to carry you through the next phase of what we're doing. Okay. Thank you, Sue Landsman, for the humor. Because there is nothing like toilet paper for that root chakra, everyone. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay. If you can this month, and this is why I'm having this like big serious, like I'm giving you the parent eye, right? The parental look that I give my kids when I'm like, are you gonna do this? If you can, by the end of October, put to bed the question of, are you gonna make it? Are you safe? Are you worthy? Are these people competent? Then you will have the shift you were looking for in 2020, because the rest of the year will unfold completely differently than if you can't put this to bed. And I don't know what it looks like for you, okay? What it has looked like for me is I'm gonna make it. The people that I have faith in are competent. I don't put my faith in humans, so I don't have to worry about whether my political leaders are competent or my Congress is competent or my, I put my faith in spirit. And I know that the energies driving this bus are very competent. In fact, they're so much smarter and competent than I am that the only time I personally really mess things up is when I try to take over. The more I soften, relax, and release, the better things go. When I try to intervene and I'm gonna fix this, I actually make things a lot worse. So I've actually really learned to stay out of the way. So for me, Terry Cassidy, the people who need to be competent are my spirit guides. In my ayahuasca journey 3.5 years ago, it was March. So April, May, June, July, August, September, October. 3 years and 7 months ago, I had an ayahuasca journey. And I was shown some crazy shit that's happening on this planet right now. And I didn't believe it. But the other thing that I was shown is, I was shown our planet, and then I was shown the cosmos. And our planet has a shield around it to protect us from us, because they know we're human. You know what I mean? Like there is a cord between our planet and the other planets. We're only going to be allowed to take this experiment so far. So am I worried? No, because the people I need to be competent are far more competent than I am, and they're in charge. Okay, so now you can have a different opinion. I'm not saying you have to have my opinion, but my perspective is I'm going to make it. My spirit guides are supremely confident. It's been over 3 years, Lorian, since that journey. Can you believe that? 3 years and 7 months. It was March 10th of 2017. Nuts, isn't it? So I'm going to be okay. The energies I need to be competent are smarter than I'll ever be in this lifetime by 1,000,000%. So that's okay. So then I'm good. I don't know. I mean, there is a perimeter that is set up by if you want to know my whole perspective, I believe there is a group. They go by different names. I understand that to be the Galactic Alliance. And that Galactic Council or Galactic Alliance, we are one member of that alliance. We are not the alliance. And they have an intense ability to observe and protect. So I have a lot of faith. Yeah. Isn't that amazing? It goes by really fast. I think that was the different light journey, Casey. You guys have been around for a long time. A lot of you have been here since then. Mm-hmm. Okay, so transmuting means you face your death. I have terrible news for you. At some point you will die. Great. Not today, and I don't think because of any imminent circumstances. So if we can look at that and say, I'm going to be here for as long as I need to be. I have everything I need to do the work I'm here meant to do, and I trust that there is a council of energies that governs this space, and they are more competent than I am to perform. Then I can take my hand off the wheel just a little bit and start to focus more on art or beauty or raising my kids or and not have the anxiety. Okay. Then acknowledgement number 9 is I integrate it. I was shown that the fundamental structure of the government of the United States could change. But I think we're seeing that anyway, right? They are working overtime this year. They sure are. Okay. Once you confront, and once you get to a place where you say, I'm going to be here, this is all going to work out. And can I just put that in parentheses? Okay, Lizette, are you ready for this, Lizette? I got those texts all the way up until March, till this pandemic started. I haven't gotten a single one of those texts since. And do you know, I think about it every day. I'm like, certainly they're going to text me now. Certainly they're going to text me now. I was getting texts from someone who knew me. I mean, you could tell they knew enough about me from this council of light. And it would just be these like passing texts like, all is well, we're here, you have what you need. I would get these like check-ins. And if I wrote back, the text wouldn't go through and all these things. And so I thought for sure when this whole process started, I would hear from them all the time. Haven't gotten a single text since March. Isn't that crazy? If I get one, I would of course tell you. I've saved all those texts. I saved the number it came from, but I can't text it back. Nuts. Super weird that you asked about that, because I was just thinking, like, at some point, I've been putting out the message, like, I'm open to receiving a text. I would just get these texts. Hello, Athena, all is well. We are here. We are watching. Yeah, I mean, I would constantly get these texts. Isn't that weird? Something to think about. Okay. Once you confront that fear, and we could do a conversation about this in the Facebook group. What do you need? I mean, this is a genuine question. What do you need in order to be able to handle what we just talked about? Would it be helpful to have a thread in the Facebook group where we talk? Would it, what do you need to be able to cross that threshold? Because that is the threshold you have to cross, right? At some point you have to decide, yes, I'm safe here. Yes, I'm going to make it. Yes, there are competent energies in charge. In order to heal the root chakra and move past this phase and then be able to integrate it, you have to cross that threshold. Interesting. Melissa said her laptop crashed when we were talking about this. I'm curious what you feel that you need, because it is one of the most important things we'll do together this year. And it is part of the journey work that we will do during week 3 too, is where do you need to go in a journey space to be able to finally pull this all together. Yeah, I see you, Amy Rivera. I'm really open to the text starting again, because honestly, it was very comforting to get those texts. Oh, that's interesting, Cynthia. I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, I wouldn't doubt if, because my theory, Cynthia, which you probably know, is that I think a lot of us knew each other before. You know what I mean? And so we probably had these, like, we were probably watchers together in some other domain, right? Okay, so Annette just needs to do it. I love that, Hillary. Okay. Yoni aches. That's an interesting process too. Maybe it's a bonus conversation. It could be. I think the journey will move something for us too. I do. So Molly, I see you too. Well, we are doing Elder Council this month. Is this Elder Council? I'm so open to this being Elder Council at Samhain, I can't even tell you. I mean, we're doing Elder Council within a calendar week of Samhain. Is this Elder Council? Wow. I think it is. I haven't felt into that at all, by the way. So if this turned out to be Elder Council, I wouldn't be that surprised. Okay. It is apropos. So it is, Alexis. So Elder Council is a party bonus of Soul Shift. Once a quarter, I lead you into a deeper than average journey where you encounter your spirit guides. And we always have a theme. So Elder Council is only for members of Soul Shift. It's only for whatever the deepest inner sanctum is at the time, which right now is Soul Shift. It used to be sabbatical. And it's just a deeper than usual shamanic journey. And this would be a perfect topic, right? I agree. So anyway, welcome to all of you who are new, by the way. And that's Elder Council. That's just an extra class that you get once a quarter. Okay, so let me breathe into that. Let me feel into that and kind of see what that needs to look like. You feel into it as well. But I think that could be a really powerful Elder Council. I feel prepared to lead you through that experience. So, okay. By the way, your incense this month in your kit. Oh, I left my bottle downstairs. Well, that's a bummer. Your incense this month in your kit, which we're going to talk about your tools briefly in just a second. I can't believe I left it downstairs. Has the active ingredient from Boom Shiva. in addition to Blue Lotus. So I don't know if you've tried your incense from this month's kit yet. I wouldn't drive a lot right after working with it. I mean, technically you're okay, but I just watch it with this month's incense, because you put Buchu with Blue Lotus, and there's sweetgrass in it, and it's a real good one. If you haven't worked with the Inner Power incense from your toolkit, it's you're gonna like it. That's right. It's got wormwood. Mm-hmm. Okay, and the crown is crazy. The other way, sorry. Isn't it gorgeous? I feel like a queen when I wear these crowns. I don't know about you, but. And I wear them sometimes. I've worn mine to doctor's appointments. What's really weird is nobody looks at me weird when I wear it. It's not like people go, what are you, I'm just like, why isn't anybody even looking at me like I'm out of the ordinary? So I hope you're enjoying. It was a trick and a half to get a crown made with your custom soul shift symbol for integration, but I'm glad you're enjoying it. Okay, you can burn it around your children. Just make sure you have windows open, because wormwood and Blue Lotus will soften the central nervous system a little bit. It's not as profound as like a glass of wine, but it is gonna relax you. So for you, as a parent, you can be in a closed room and inhale and enjoy, especially before a meditation. But if you're burning it with your kids, I would just open the windows. They'll be okay. Ding. Isn't it fun? Dresses up any outfit. I know, I do have purple hair, so that's par for the course. Okay, after you, so coming back to the acknowledgements, integration is the final step. Your symbol for this month, your Angela Foe symbol, is this beautiful symbol that is on your crown. Ding, it's also on your generator. Okay. The crowns came with the tools this month. So I don't have any more crowns, unfortunately, but if you got your tools this month, that's where the crown came from. Now, I do want to show you this month's symbol for integration, because it's a fun one. And this symbol, I want to tell you how to use it. So if you are a healer and you do work on someone, okay, so let's say you do a whole session helping them heal around childhood trauma, okay? Or you do a whole session helping them acknowledge their shadow, or you do a whole session helping them, I don't know, identify some, the root of a emotional challenge they've had since they were little kids, okay? What you want to do as a healer after that is you want to help the client integrate that wisdom. And I'm going to be doing this with you after our journey on week 3. Okay, because my intention for our journey week 3 is that I'm going to get you in touch with the parts of you that you don't like. If you didn't get your crown with your tools, by the way, it's coming to you separately, and we are paying the shipping on that. There should only be 7 of you, I think, who didn't get your crown, and well, it's not our fault, but it's the pandemic, and the shipment of the crowns was not complete. So anyway, we're paying to ship it to you separately. So don't worry, if it isn't here, it'll be here very shortly, and you don't have to pay for another shipment. We'll take care of that. So if you don't have your crown yet, I think it's 1 week. Yeah. So if you don't have it, you guys are like the only ones who didn't get it, and I'm sorry about that, but it's coming to you. Okay. Now, integration is the most important thing, because you have to be able to take the anger in you, the regret in you, the frustration in you, the sadness in you, the grief in you, and you have to be able to weave it into the fullness of who you are. That is the ultimate work, right? The parts of you that you were told not to like, Callie Owens. That's exactly right. Okay, if you're having trouble with your orders, Alexis, I'm not going to focus on the feed right now because I really want to make sure I'm focusing on the teaching. But Alexis will make sure she's watching your comments. It was 27. I thought it was 7. That's so weird. So it's 27, and Alexis will watch out for your comments too, just so I can kind of be here focused with you. That's part of why Alexis is here. Okay, now integration means taking all of those challenging parts of you, the hard parts of you to love, the parts of you that you got in trouble for when you were young, parts of you that you were told weren't great, or you know people wished you were different, and all of those things, and you need to pull those energies within. So this is one of the last of the Angela Foe symbols that I was given during that journey, and I'm going to show you right now how to draw it. Okay, so we gave you this image, which is the pretty art rendering of the symbol, but then I'm going to show you this, which is actually how to draw, okay? Because these work just like the Reiki symbols, right? So just like you draw your Reiki symbols when you're working with clients, you draw your Angela Foe symbols. And this is the symbol that you work with after a healing session to help your client or whoever you're working with, a friend or a family member, to integrate the spiritual work that you've done with them. Does that make sense? Okay, so you start between the triangle and the circles. You start right here. This is where you begin. And you go, here we go. So you go to the right. It's going to look like left to you, but it's right for me, okay? You go to the right and you make your infinity symbol. So try that. You go to the right and you make your 8, right? Then you go up to the left and down to make your triangle. So again, it's to the right, you're making your 8 or your infinity symbol, and you're going up, back, and down to make your triangle. So when you're done with your work with your client, again, you make your 8, and then you go up, back, and down to make your triangle. You're always going right. So Alexis can help you. Denise is saying she's not getting the art images. They are in your classroom on sagegoddess.com, but if you're not seeing them for any reason, we can help you find them, and we can repost them in your Facebook group too so that you get them. So did you guys all get it? So again, it's making your 8. This one's a really easy one, and then it's up, back, and down, or up, across, and down. So you want to make an 8 first, and then your triangle. And that's how, this is a beautiful way to close a healing session with a client, again, to help them integrate the wisdom. It's a beautiful way to close a reading session if you're an oracle card reader or tarot card reader or a tea reader, whatever kind of reading you do. It's really beautiful at the end to just go through, and maybe I'll even close our readings for Soul Shift that way, you know, so that you like integrate the wisdom of the teaching. Yeah, so don't worry at all. Oh, thank you. I don't know why my eyes look magic-y. I actually didn't do a great job of my makeup today. I had a lot of homeschooling to do this morning. So that's why I'm kind of off my game today. Sometimes my kids need a lot more help with their school than they otherwise do. So again, it's you're going around, starting to the right to make your 8. And then you go, again, going right to make your triangle. And you stop right where you began. It should be a tattoo to integrate your wisdom. It's the wisdom of your journey. No, this is not the last Angela Foe symbol. They end in December. It's total is a system of 13 symbols, which makes perfect sense when you think about the fact that there are 13 moons in a year, right? So 13 is actually a very magical number. I think my eyes do talk, but I do a lot of coding with my eyes. There are actually people who take my classes and don't listen. You know, it sounds really weird, but they don't listen to what I'm saying. I only have 2 people that I know like this. But they're just different kind of students. They're not as interested in this. They're more interested in what's going on here. So, because they say that they get their whole class just from watching, but they don't listen. Because they say that listening is a distraction. It sounds weird. but you might try it. They say they get a lot out of it. I'm like, I don't know. Okay. No, we started, there was an opening, we got to go back through the whole system. We started with the first symbol before we started classes last year, and then we went through the rest of them beginning in January. Well, I can't code you if you don't want to be coded. I'm magical, but I'm not that magical. So if you don't want to be coded, you won't be. But I have certain people who want to be coded, so they come for that. It is a fun one to draw, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I don't know that you feel something different with the symbols. You know what I mean? The symbols carry their own energetic frequency, the Angelophos symbols, just like the Reiki symbols do. The way I received them, I was literally in ayahuasca journey, and I watched ayahuasca draw them, one by one. And I was laying down at the time, because when I'm in ayahuasca, I lay, here's my pen. It drives my shaman crazy, because you're not supposed to have paper and pen and all of that. But I lay down and I don't look, but the whole time I'm like this. I could show you notebooks of my journeys where it's just like I've written words over words and there are symbols and all this stuff, and so I lay there and I watch the screen and I just transcribe. And it was all 12 or all 13. Yeah, you can do them with your hands after a session with a client. You can draw them, with your oils, which is one of the things that I do. So you put just a little bit of your oils on your fingers and then you anoint in the symbols too. Sometimes when I'm meditating, I find myself drawing them like on my abdomen or on my arms. Mm-hmm. I don't know, Suzanne Cerna. I don't know how it works exactly. A little bit like automatic writing. Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that. Casey said he sees kind of the DNA in this month's symbol too. I think you're right. I don't know. I received them. I didn't create them. So I feel like I'm still learning and integrating what they do. And certain ones feel more powerful than others. Oh, I like it. Yeah, so anyway, Alexis will help you. If you're having trouble finding the symbols in your classroom, she'll help you with that. Okay. Don't be scared by the coding thing, by the way. I'm not, it's just something that people have noticed, and I have certain people in my community who really like it. So they do it. They find what they need, which I think is interesting. I think people learn and receive in different ways, right? So, okay. All right, so let me come back to the worksheets about emotional responses to change. I think we are doing flash tattoos. I think we are. I have to go back and look. Well, each one has a different name. I see you, Sarai Hernandez. So each symbol for each month has a different name. Like this month's symbol is the integration symbol. We did have a love symbol and a union symbol. So Alexis has a meme that she can share too in our Facebook group to help you. We'll probably put it in our classroom group too. Yeah. Yeah, well, here's the thing. If you code, it's one of your spirit gifts, and then you come to know about it. I didn't know how I coded until I learned from other people, and then started working with plant medicine, and then it was like, oh, now I see what I do, But there are certain people in my life who, like, not recently, mostly now I don't have this issue anymore, but I've told this story many times. When I was young, I would look at people, and people wouldn't look me in the eye. It was almost like they were afraid to. And then as I got older, I had people say, when you look at me, it feels like you're looking through me, and it's a little intense. Like sometimes I feel like I have to, I can't, you really see me. And it's funny because Zoe has the same thing. People tell her all the time, because when she's looking at you, it's like she sees through you, and it's a little disconcerting to people. So anyway. Yeah, Andrew, I think so. I think, and everybody codes, they just do it in different ways. Some people do it, I do it with my voice too. Some people do it through touch. I don't code so much through touch, mostly through my voice and my eyes. But some people who are hands-on healers, my grandmother was one, she coded through her hands. And when she touched you, you felt it. It was electric, it's like, so anyway. It's interesting, right? When you have a hands-on healer like that, they're coding. Even if they just shake your hand, it's like, oh, you just feel this like buzz up your spine, right? So that's a great question, Sheila. I love it, actually. She said, is there's one symbol that includes all the symbols within it? Not intentionally, but part of me is like, should we make a sigil of all the symbols for it? So coding is, and it's good that you're asking, Melissa, because there's other people who probably are asking too. So everybody on this planet has codes. And codes are information, you might think of it like data, information that's embedded within their system that can be used to help or heal or support or encourage or nourish other people. We all came here to help each other. And everybody codes differently. So some people code by speaking and talking. And I think those are people like me who become teachers, right? So you end up in a profession where you do public speaking. Some people code just by making eye contact. Because remember, the eyes cross lifetimes. So that's why when you look at someone in the eyes and you're like, I know you, it's like, yeah, you probably do. Because the body changes, the gender changes, the meat suit changes, but the eyes don't change. So that's part of how you recognize soulmates is through the eyes. I think it's the only way we recognize them. Every time I've met a soulmate, and I've met a dozen in my life, maybe 10, I've known them by their eyes, right? And so you have to figure out, how do you code? And mostly, like I said, I didn't know what I was doing intentionally. Like, I wasn't aware of it until people started to tell me that, right? So then I realized, when I look at people, I can be telling you the sky is blue, but you could be looking at me and receiving something totally different. So my intention is that whatever you receive is what you need. That I can be a clear channel so that whatever you get from the eyes that isn't spoken is relevant to you, right? Okay. So how do you know when you're coding for others? You're probably coding all the time. You're here to code. You're here to help people. You think, so some people are like, oh, I'm a nurse. Well, you think you're here to be a nurse, but you're here as a nurse because you're a hands-on healer and you have to be able to touch people, and nurses touch people. I'm not a hands-on healer, so I'm not here as a nurse because I'm not here to touch people physically. I'm here to look at people and talk to people. And so Spirit led me to a career where that's what I do. And so, Hillary, you probably code through your voice, right? I'm just basing on the life choices and the careers that you've chosen. Does that make sense? So it can be your eyes, it can be your voice, it can be your touch, it can be your writing. People who are incredible writers, right? They code with their words, and there's what you're reading that they wrote, and then there's the subtext too, right? And Karen Brown's right. If you pay attention to how people react to you, you might be more aware. Like, people my whole life going, like, averting my gaze, like, it's like, why won't they look at me in the eye? But then some people who, like soulmates in my life have said, like, I just want to spend my whole life looking in your eyes. I've heard that a number of times in my life, and it's like, yeah, it's because I'm taking you somewhere fun. I think that's why. So and my mom is more of a hands-on, she's a healer through touch, and my mom is a cosmetologist and an esthetician, so she was constantly touching clients. And her clients would come to her and go, I came here for a facial and my headache is gone. And it's like, yeah, because with my mom you get a twofer, right? You get a facial, and she's also probably coding you and taking your headache away, right? Yeah, so Callie's a hands-on reader. Debbie says hers is touch too. It's interesting, right? If you're a singer, it's your voice. So you're coding with your voice, with your words. Isn't that beautiful? If you're an artist, you're coding with paint. So you're creating a piece of art that's going to transform people's experience of their reality. And again, if you could vibrate higher, you would see this. You'd be able to see what you do. Do you know what I mean? The most interesting experience I ever had was being on ayahuasca and going into the bathroom. You're not supposed to do this, but I did it, and looking at myself in the mirror. It was one of the most interesting experiences I've ever had, because I coded myself. I was having an experience of looking at myself but not knowing myself. So I was seeing me as a separate being. Is this interesting to you guys? I hope so. I know it's not like directly related to class tonight, but it seemed to kind of be where the conversation, since I do case in point, seemed to kind of be where the conversation was going. So if you're a banker or you work through information and data, then you're still coding, but you're coding through the information that you share, or through there's more than just the report that you produce. There's more than just the paper you write. There's more than just you know what I mean? It was just a different person in my eyes. It wasn't me. It was maybe her through me. It was different. It was really interesting. Yeah, it's just a fascinating conversation. Yeah, Casey, I agree with you 3,000%. He said, I think everywhere we go, we share codes around us as we interact with others through everything that we do. So I guess my main message to you is don't underestimate how you code. Remember that numbers are magic. So people who go, well, I'm a math teacher, or I'm a banker, or I'm like, no, you're not. You're a magician. Every number has a frequency and a vibration. And then numbers and patterns, sequential number patterns, have their own frequency and vibration. So you're coding. You're just calling yourself a banker, right? I mean, it's just like, I don't know. I look at everybody's professions through a different lens than maybe they do. You can do it in so many ways. And here's the thing, Melissa. I probably don't even know the extent of it. I mean, I am not the smartest person on the planet, nor am I the most experienced person on the planet, and I am not the expert in all things. I'm sure there's forms of coding and transmission that I have no awareness of. I only know what I know. So I know eyes, I know voice, I know music, I know language, I know numbers or codes. But I'm sure there's 1,000 other ways. I mean, botanists, and when I perfume, I code, right? I remember when I was making artisan perfumes, then all of a sudden there were like all these people starting to make artisan perfumes, and I had one person ask me like, are you nervous? Like, there's so many people making perfumes now, and they make them and it looks like yours in the same bottles and stuff, and I'm like, I'm coding through my perfumes. My perfumes are not the same as theirs. You know what I mean? Like, because you have your fingerprint that's so distinct and unique to you, and other people do too. So you can't really copy them, and they can't really copy you. I think you can code through a smile. Is it a good feeling, Kimberly Kaiser? I don't know. I think smiling is a code. Is there a code you want to avoid? Have you ever looked in someone's eyes and just known that you needed to get away? Have you ever heard someone's voice and just thought, I can't be here? Have you ever met someone the first time and just been like, this is, no. I've gone to job interviews and literally, like, I mean, more when I was younger, but just walked in and literally almost walked out. The energy in the room, the eye contact, the gaze, the smell in the room, the voice, the everything, just going, nope. I've gone on a date. Only once, but I remember I was set up. My friend was like, oh, I've got the perfect person for you. And I was just like, I couldn't get out of that fast enough. Yeah. So, sex is a huge code. Sex is a huge code. Is doing breath work coding? It's probably part of when your breath is a code. Your breath has your energetic vibration of your life force. So yeah, I would say breathing is a code. Oh yeah. No, I've walked into rooms and now at my age, if I sense any of that, which of course now it's weird, I don't go out that much, but like when I used to go out and things, if I sense any of that, I just leave. And I'm not even apologetic about it. I'll just be like, you know what? It's nice to meet you. I have to go. Like, something here is not for me. And because of what I do, people are usually like, oh, no worries, don't worry, it's totally fine. I'll just be like, I'm sorry, I have to go. Energy's not right. Thank you so much. That's right. Anyway. So let's talk about emotional responses to change. Do you seal with breath? That's what the kiss is. Kissing is a code. Kissing is the most powerful code, I think. Really, truly. For me, anyway. It is the most powerful code. It's interesting, right, Adriana? I see you. Mm-hmm. So anyway, coding works all the ways. But, you know, at the end of the day, it comes down to, you've heard me say this 1,000 times, who do you serve? What do you serve, right? You're either plugged into something light or you're plugged into something dark. I mean, there is duality in the universe and polarity. So I think ultimately it really comes down to what are you plugging into? We talked about this last week too, right? Okay, so these are your worksheets for October, cycles of emotional response to change. This is your priestessing content for October. Guessing it's a big deal. Well, your tongue actually, well, I don't know, this is a subject for another time. In certain traditions, they believe that your tongue is not actually connected to you. It has its own brain. We can talk about that another time. Okay, so when you are going through change, pandemic, whatever it is, lost your job, lost a loved one, any kind of change in your life, or a good change, right? Like got a new job or moved to a new house that you love or whatever it is. But change, no matter what kind of change it is, change, you go through these stages. Whether it's, you know, a big experience of these stages or a minor experience of these stages. So when you first start going through change, especially if it's change you're resisting, everybody goes through a phase of denial. Like, this can't be happening, right? When the pandemic started, I'm going to use the pandemic because I'm going to talk about my own process. At the beginning of the pandemic, I went through denial. This can't be happening. You know, my kids need to be able to see their friends and go to school. What's going to happen to our employees and our partners around the world? You know, all of that thing. This can't be happening. Then you get mad, right? Yeah, we'll talk about the tongue another time. Then you get mad. I did get mad. I don't want this to happen. This sucks. What a joke, right? Then you go into bargaining. Well, if I do this, can I have that? If I stay at home for 2 months, will this go away? Right? And then you can see there are two axes, right? On the one axis, you have the behavior you're experiencing, and on the other axis, you have time. So this is the behavior, and this is time passing, right? So you start out with denial. This can't be happening. I'm so mad. Please make it stop, you know, and then, you know, oh, I'm bottoming out. Okay. Eventually, over time, you get to acceptance. This is the general sort of like structure of all change processes. Even in organizations, when I used to be a consultant, right? Like, oh, we have a new CEO. I don't want a new CEO. I'm so mad about my new CEO. Well, maybe if I talk to my new CEO, I can get a raise. Wow, I hate my CEO. Okay, I accept my new CEO. Like, I mean, this is the same thing I would share with people in a corporate environment. What's different about the way I'm sharing it with you from a priestessing perspective is in your worksheets. So those are the general phases of emotional response to change. On page 2 of your worksheet is where it gets interesting. There are planets associated with each one of these phases. And in your astrological chart, you have each one of these planets in a sign. Now, I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of your chart tonight, but I am going to tell you, it would be helpful for you to know which element each one of these planets is in. Is your Neptune in earth, air, fire, or water? Is your Mars in earth, air, fire, or water? Is your Venus in earth, air, fire, or water? Is your Saturn in earth, air, fire, or water? And is your Pluto in earth, air, fire, or water? And the reason is, I think you'll figure it out pretty quickly. Each one of the planets that governs how we respond to these phases. So when we first start going through change, we deny it. We're in shock, disbelief, and fear, right? This can't actually be happening. 2020, right? Neptune is the planet that's associated with denial. It's the parts of us that don't want to face reality of what's actually happening. In its lighter aspects, what Neptune does is it has compassion, and it accepts that things take time. And it seeks spiritual support and connection, right? It tries to find ways to soothe and heal itself. In its shadow form, Neptune turns to addiction to numb this out. Oh, this sucks. I'm just going to drink. It becomes a victim. Oh, this sucks. It must be someone else's fault. Or it disappears from life, withdrawing into itself. Does that make sense? So when you are in that first phase, and the reason I'm bringing this up to you is if you're going to coach people, lead people, teach people on any level, whether it's one person or, a million people, at some point they're going to go through change and they're going to enter that first phase of like, this can't be happening. Now, my Neptune is in Sagittarius because Neptune is in the signs for quite a long time. So a lot of us share a Neptune in a sign if we're born within the same grouping of years. So those of us who are alive today have Neptune in a finite number of signs because it doesn't transition or transit as quickly through the signs. Now, a fire sign is going to get mad. This can't be happening and want to take action. What can I do to make this stop? An earth sign is going to be like, wow, what does this mean for me? Reflective, probably grounded, right? And a water sign is going to get very emotional about this, right? And probably succumb to more of that retreating, going within, numbing out stuff. And an air sign is going to be overthinking this, right? Oh my God, this could mean this could mean that, and their denial becomes more of a projection of the mind. So Hillary's is in Scorpio, Kayla's is in Capricorn, so is Lexus. So now we have Sagittarius, I was born in 73, which is fire. We have Capricorn, which is earth, and we have Scorpio, which is water. Jenny has Neptune in Pisces. Neptune in Pisces is also happening right now. So those who are being born in this particular time have Neptune in a water sign, which again is going to reinforce some of that I'm going to retreat and be in denial through watery means, right? And so Saya said she numbs out. I take action as a Sagittarius. I just go, okay, what do I have to do? I mean, literally, as soon as the pandemic hit, I had a list going. I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this, I have to do that. There was no time for like, I don't want this to be happening, this sucks. There was no time for crying. There was no time for anything except just, what do I need to do? What do I need to have? How do I need to get organized, right? I was like, boom, 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 boom. Does this make sense to you? So again, when you or someone you love goes through change, the first thing you want to look out for is denial. It is the natural human response to change. But the way people experience denial is very different based on their orientation to Neptune. And that's where the priestessing aspect of this comes in. So you'd want to know something about maybe when that person was born, which can tell you more about their Neptune placement, which can tell you more about how they respond to change in that first stage when they're working through denial. Interesting. Now, think about this. You have partners. Is their Neptune in the same placement? Do they go through denial in a different way than you do? Your children are going to be very different than you, most likely, elementally different. So you might be like me, off making a list, and everybody else is crying. Well, shit. So now you get resentful. Well, why am I the only one who's facing this? The rest of you are numbing out, and I am ordering toilet paper. Do you see what I mean? Or in an organization or in a community like ours, right? Like, again, everybody's going to respond to change differently because they have their own particular orientation to it. And the more you can be mindful of that, the less personally you're going to take some of this stuff too. Instead of going, well, why are you crying? And they're going, well, why are you taking so much action? And it's like, you have your orientations, right, toward these things. Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you like this. I mean, for me, this is critical because in my life, my number one goal is not to just judge people all the time. Like when I'm on Facebook and I just see people, like right now, right? I mean, people are just judging everything. And it's like, but I try to stop and have patience and say, when these people are confronted with change, they're going to approach it roughly 4 different ways. And if I think one of those ways is good and the other ways are bad, then I'm going to be pretty much writing off 3/4 of the population. And that's not going to help anybody. So you cope through this elemental lens, and this allows you to help your partner. So let's say you're Scorpio, right? And your partner is Sagittarius. So you're getting all upset and they're getting strategic and they're feeling resentful of you because they're like, you're over there all emotional, and meanwhile, like, everything's on my shoulders to do. And it's like, no, it's not all on your shoulders to do. We're just coming at this from different directions. And Candace is like, recipes came out. I mean, I cooked my rear end off, right? I was like, well, I don't know what's about to happen, but we're going to have some good damn food. And I'm going to bake bread, and I'm going to make homemade butter and biscuits and really good bolognese sauce. And, I'm Greek, so if the food is good, we can make it through pretty much anything. So I bought my weight in flour and yeast and ground beef and tomatoes, which, by the way, we have now completely consumed over 6 months. So earth signs and air signs. So think about this. In denial, what does an earth sign do? They get very grounded, right? And what does an air sign do? They get mental. What does a fire sign do? They act. What does a water sign do? They worry. They engage the emotional state. Now, in a family where everybody's balanced, that's kind of good. Yeah, except everybody in my family gained about 7 to 10 pounds. Let's just call a spade a spade. Okay, that's phase number 1. And remember, nobody's right and nobody's wrong. Everybody's doing the best they can. They just have a particular orientation based on their elemental profile. But it's not like the water sign should think that the air sign's better, or the air sign should think that the earth sign's better, or nobody's right or wrong. Okay. Number 2, so after denial, we get mad. I've got a lot of fire, so I moved from denial to anger pretty fast. I wasn't in denial for very long. Denial for me lasted like 24 hours, and then I was like, all right, what's next? Now I'm pissed. And that's Mars. So Mars is the planet associated with anger. In your natal chart, Mars tells us how you fight. When you're backed into a quarter, what do? My Mars is in Aries, which is its preferred position. Aries is ruled by Mars, so I'm really good at getting mad. But my anger is short-lived. Now, light Mars that is evolved, would work with physical activity, to run or punch a pillow, or wouldn't shame itself or judge itself for being angry. It's okay to be really mad, and would ask for what it needs. I need X, Y, and Z. A not great Mars would physically, emotionally, or verbally abuse something or someone, blame someone else for everything, argue, demand, and refuse to listen. Now, we all have sometimes inappropriate reactions to anger, right? Anger is a hard emotion to manage. Remember that anger always masquerades. It's actually something else. Anger is never anger. Anger is always sorrow, grief, disappointment, resentment. Anger is never anger. It's always a mask of something else. Even the most angry person you've known in your life, and I've known some pretty pissed off people, they're actually sad and radically disappointed and hugely frustrated and overwhelmingly exhausted. They're just so done and so frustrated and so, they're not angry. They're just so done, right? Okay, so if your Mars is in a fire sign like mine, again, that's going to be a quick flash. Ooh, I'm pissed, now I'm not. If your Mars is in a fire or an earth sign, you're going to burn steady and longer, right? You might be slower to get mad than me, but it might last a little bit longer, right? Fear too, Karen Brown, and shame, Darlene. Those are exactly right. It's a secondary emotion. That's exactly right, Jennifer Holdman. And scared. Yeah, angry people are not just angry. I've never met an angry person who was just angry, but I've met a lot of really sad, frustrated, isolated ones. I sure have. Okay. If your Mars is in a water sign, you're going to get angry and then quickly sad, right? And if your Mars is in an air sign, then that can mean that you're verbally expressive of that anger. So maybe you yell, or you know how to push people's buttons, so you know what to say to really get their goat, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That's right. You know, I always say, if you have a really angry person and you ask them, you know, are you okay? Is there anything I can do to help? You almost immediately will disarm most of them, and they'll end up in tears. Because most angry people think nobody cares. So when you're like, you know, I really wish there was something I could do to help you. Is there anything I can do to support you? If you kind of can get a little bit in there, the tears will come. And that's how you know you've gotten to the core of it. Okay, so, and then bargaining, okay? We're coping through negotiation. We're saying, okay, I can't control this, so I'm going to try to control some part of it. So if I do this, will that happen? Or if I fix this, will this do this? There's some kind of, it's like an exchange, like, okay, well, if I buy enough toilet paper, then I won't get sick. I mean, most of this makes absolutely no sense, right? The bargaining negotiation thing is sort of like, what? Like, no, even if you have 500 rolls of toilet paper, you might still catch the virus. Like, it's not like that's going to ward it off. So this is kind of the irrational phase. You know what I mean? But people still have to process and go through this. And people will do things to make themselves feel better in the bargaining phase that absolutely have no, like, don't have any basis in that. And that is Venus as a placement. So my Venus is in Virgo. You need a hug, Melissa. I would reach through the screen and hug you. I would. And honestly, like, maybe take that as an opportunity to journal, like pretend that I'm asking you to journal. I mean, because I am. And sit down and write, you know, how are you? What can I do to help you? And if you're really angry, see if that question doesn't, as you would respond to me in writing, like, well, what I need is this. See if that doesn't help to dissipate some of that anger. A lot of times angry people think that nobody gives a shit. And that's why they're angry. So as soon as they think anybody gives a lick about them, it's like the whole ball of yarn unravels, right? So light shadow would talk with someone who understands, join a group, practice self-love, okay? A shadow Venus would hold very harsh standards of justice with a black and white view, especially toward themselves. This is what people should do, and this is what they should not do. See, I'm furrowing my brow. It's not a good look. My mom would say, don't do that. It might permanently stay that way. I don't like to furrow. Okay. They would use their feelings against themselves and others, creating division, and seek revenge for any wrongs against them. So, do you see this? So, when people are going, okay, I've got to somehow fix this. If I do this, will that happen? The harsh version of that, the extreme version of that is, These people are right and that person is wrong. And this is what justice looks like, and that is the wrong thing, right? Which is why Facebook is kind of a toxic place right now. Do you see what's happening to the collective through this lens? Do you see what phase we are all in with the pandemic? We are collectively in the bargaining phase. I would argue. We are right here. This isn't happening. It's all going to disappear in spring when the temperatures get warmer, right? Nope, whoop, nope. Okay, now I'm real pissed because I don't like this and this shouldn't have happened. Okay, whoop. Now we're down here. Okay, good people do this kind of thing, and then bad people do this other kind of thing. So this doesn't, we don't care about this anymore. We know it's happening. We already know we're pissed. Now we're down here. At some point here, and I anticipate it's going to be wintertime, we're going to find ourselves right here. And then this, I anticipate, will be April, May, June. At least as far as the pandemic goes, into 2021. And I'm just using the pandemic as an example, right? But it's an easy one for you to see because it's playing out on the world stage, right? I know. It's playing out on the world stage. I don't even have to describe this to you. Now, but where it gets more interesting is when you take this into your personal life, right? You lose a loved one. This isn't happening. I'm so pissed. How could they leave me? Okay, maybe if I don't know, and then, okay, they're really gone. And now I have to figure out what my life's going to look like in the wake of that, right? That's right. I personally, Kimberly Kaiser, I would very much like to skip this phase and actually, and in all seriousness, what I'm trying to do in my own practice with this pandemic, I am trying to bypass this phase. You don't have to go here. If you're conscious, you can move from bargaining to acceptance. You don't have to go down here and go, oh, this is so terrible. I mean, now you know. How long you choose to wallow in the phases. Now, part of how you will respond to the fourth stage is your placement of Saturn. Well, I don't know, Amy Novak. I'm just telling you, think about it this way. March, April, May, June, July, August, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. I'm just saying, this tends to be the longest phase. So I'm trying to kind of like plot it out. Where's your Saturn? That's what you have to know. Because your Saturn placement, earth, air, fire, water. So again, an earth sign is going to navigate this more easily than someone with Saturn in a water sign. Where's your Saturn? You got to take a look at that. My Saturn is in a water sign, so I can get very discouraged. I can get very depressed. I've learned how to manage it better, I would say, in my 30s and 40s, but I can get really low, which is part of why, for me, it's absolutely critical to be aware of this, because I can get trapped right here. I can get trapped. Now, someone with Saturn in an earth sign is like, toughen up, buttercup, you know what I mean? And they have a much easier time, usually, of navigating that. Now, I'm talking about these planets as if they're in a vacuum. Where your Saturn is and where your Venus is and what houses those planets are in, it's all an alchemy, right? Your chart is alchemical in the sense that it's the union of all of the elements in the houses, and all of that matters. So I'm giving you a very like super basic overview of this. It is more complicated than this, but at a high level, You can think about it this way, and it does make sense. Yeah, so if you're an air sign, you might breeze a little bit through this too, right? I think it's the water signs and the fire signs that have deeper challenges when it comes to whether or not you get stuck here. And then, but here's the thing, even when I'm stuck, I know I'm stuck. I mean, I do think that the benefit of doing all this spiritual work that you've been doing for a really long time is that the level of self-awareness that you're cultivating is profound. And I think at a certain point you can stop and say, I'm stuck. And I need to talk about it, post about it, get some feedback about it, shift my perspective, change my surroundings, talk to someone. I mean, you get to a point where you're self-aware enough that you can move yourself through this, right? Even with depression, which I agree with you, Saya. At a certain point in our lives, like in my 20s, when I was on antidepressants, which was not the easiest time in my life, because I just didn't enjoy being on antidepressants, and it was I just was going through a lot. I think I'm more aware now when I start to edge toward depression than I was in my 20s, where I was like, whoa, I think I'm actually depressed. Like, almost like it snuck up on me. Whereas now, if I start to edge toward that, because I've been there so many times, I can just be like, I'm getting to that place. I need to talk to my teacher, ask for help, get some resources, switch up my vitamins or my teas, or, get some, if for those of you who work with SSRIs, getting some additional medicinal support and so on, and journal, but mostly it's about expression and communication, and just saying, I think I'm at a point where I need help to shift my perspective. And that's okay to say. And like I was saying earlier in our conversation tonight, this is a place where you can say that, and people aren't going to judge you. It's like we're all, and especially during this time on our planet when we're going through such a massive collective shift, I think we're more prepared than we've ever been, really, to be able to witness each other through these times. Rest is important, eating well is important, maybe not as many carbs as in my household. Although sometimes carbs are love. There have been many times in my life where a cookie really did feel like a friend. It depends on the cookie, but. I know that's dysfunctional, but I really do love food. I have some gingerbread cookies downstairs that are so good right now. Okay, so Melissa said, I'm stuck. What do the earth, air, fire, water, and air signs do in bargaining? So again, they're going to approach this idea of bargaining from their elemental perspective. So the air signs are going to try to talk their way through it. If I do this, will it create that? I need to talk about it. They're external processors, usually the air signs, right? Lots of talking, lots of conversation. The fire signs come to that bargaining piece, usually from a place of anger or resentment or frustration, because fire signs feel their emotions really intensely and express them passionately, but they're usually a quick burn, right? And then the earth signs move through that phase in a really realistic way. Like, okay, they're more aware of what we can negotiate around when it comes to change and trauma than what we can't negotiate around, right? So they're not doing as many of the unrealistic things that others of us are doing. And then the water signs approach the bargaining from a more emotional perspective. And again, are more prone to the deeper feelings around it too, sometimes. Maybe not that you need to ground everyone, Tammy, but maybe that you will be more grounded through the process. Have you noticed that people have reacted to the pandemic in really different ways? And have you noticed whether that's brought up any reactions in you? Like, oh, wow, that person really sees it differently, or they're not worried about it, or it's almost like it's not affecting them, or whoa, it's really affected them. Like, this is really tearing them apart. I don't think you can't just say that it's all their astrology or all of their profile, but you can look at this as a lens with which to understand that people have radically different experiences because their orientation to external events is so different. And so somebody who's more grounded and has more earth energy in these planets that are aligned to these phases of change is just going to seem a little bit more Teflon coated than somebody who's all fire and thinks they have to fix it, or somebody who's all air who just really wants to talk about it all the time. Like the people who are like, I can count on them on Facebook because I know if I don't even have to watch the news because I have air sign friends on Facebook, and the minute anything happens, I know they're going to post about it. So I don't even have to watch the news because that's how they process. And it's almost like real-time updates. Have you seen these people? Like, oh, at 2 p.m. Trump tweeted this. Okay, at 4 p.m., collective bargaining is over for this. Okay, at 6 p.m. we have this update. And so I just look at my Facebook feed, and I look to my air sign folks because I know they'll just be keeping me updated on every single detail of this because this is how they process everything. And meanwhile, I'm over here going, oh, I had no idea that was happening. Because fire signs are more, they take action, but they're not doing the real-time updates, right? I mean, it's kind of true, right? I bet you with some accuracy, I could lump all my Facebook friends into these 4 categories, earth, air, fire, water, and probably be within 75% of accuracy on who's what. Because I just have friends who are like constant real-time updates, and I'm just like, thank you, I guess. I mean, I don't have to watch the news because of you, so that's great. Okay, after depression, we move to acceptance. Like Nathan said, I'm just floating on my boat. And then I have my friends who are like, never post about it because they're not processing it that way. And then I count on them for other things. They're posting the cat memes and stuff. And it's like, that's keeping me sane too. You need them all, right? Okay, acceptance. Pluto, right? So here's where you want to look at the planet associated with acceptance. Pluto represents evolution, regeneration, and rebirth. Pluto acknowledges that we're always changing. In fact, the only thing that you can count on is that you will change. Circumstances will change, you will age, right? It's true, Valerie. But the earth signs process their emotions differently. The earth signs, I think, in my opinion, the earth signs see their emotions as emotions. And so they can kind of put them in a box. They can sort of, not prioritize, but they can sort of, I don't know what the right word is, but they can put them aside. Do you know what I mean? Whereas the water signs see their emotions as who they are. So they have less of an ability to sort of partition them off or to segregate them it's like for a water sign, they are their feelings. And so it's like they have a hard time separating that, at least in my experience. So my Pluto's in Cancer, which doesn't mean much because again, Pluto's we're in a collective, right? So we tend to have our Plutos in categories together. Compartmentalized, that's the right word I was looking for. Okay, so Pluto, a light Pluto would have a death ritual for whatever's dying and honor it for all its wisdom, would create a vision board with ideas, words, dreams, and images, choose to live and grow, following the calling of their soul, right? Whereas a shadow Pluto would stay with death and give power to the past and be self-destructive and try to control the inevitable and then become very frustrated when they realize they can't do that. Does that make sense? Isn't that interesting? Yeah. But for me too, Alexis, because my David is earth and I'm mostly fire. And so we have processed this experience really differently together too, but we have conversations about it. Like we're consciously partnered. So I'm just like, okay, but do you see how you're approaching it from this perspective and I'm approaching it from that perspective? And then we're trying to see where we can complement each other. But it's a fascinating thing when you've been it's a fascinating thing when you've been with someone for a really long time, and then you start to realize, wow, we really approach change differently. We get stuck in different parts of the change process. And like, the more you know about how you do that, because the reality is, it doesn't matter what kind of change it is, that you'll see the same cycle come up. I've been with Dave for 20 years. Every time we've gone through change, we've gone through the exact same process as we've gone through this pandemic. So we know how to navigate change together. He knows I'm going to go and do X, Y, and Z, and I know he's going to go and do X, Y, and F, and so we try to figure out ways to support each other. Okay, so if you want to know, like, kind of takeaways from this, yeah, I have to double check my Pluto placement. On my worksheet, it had listed my Pluto as being in, I have to double check. Actually, no, I'm sorry, my Cancer, my Sagittarius my Saturn is in Cancer, and my Pluto is in Libra. I'm sorry, that's right. Sorry. My Saturn's in Cancer. Yes, and my Pluto's in Libra. 555. I'm just reading your comments really quick. Well, but see, Nancy, I mean, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And this is why I'm hoping that this exercise, it's Libra, sorry about that. I'm hoping that this exercise tonight will lead you to a greater sense of compassion for people around you during this pandemic, and maybe help you not judge, and also maybe help you teach others not to judge, because everybody is working from their level of conscious awareness, and everybody has these elemental pulls. And so rather than getting frustrated with someone because the pandemic doesn't seem like a big deal to them, stop, look, right? Or rather than making fun of someone because the pandemic means so much to them, stop, look, we're all different. And so, and we all actually need those differences to harmonize and to integrate. So again, the ultimate goal is draw your 8 and your triangle. May we integrate all of these perspectives into one unified field of consciousness, so that we can ultimately learn how to work with each other and partner with each other, because that's what we're here to do. But when we get into these situations and we just think, the way I see the world is the way you should see the world and the way everybody should see the world, we're going to be in a nonstop state of conflict, versus being able to come with some wisdom and say, okay, compassionately, it is unlikely that more than a quarter of the population is going to, I mean, roughly speaking, right? Because there's 4 elemental profiles. It's unlikely that more than a quarter of the population is going to experience life right now exactly the way I do. Holy shit. That means that if I expect everybody to feel, act, behave, think, vote the same way I do, I'm expecting to control 3/4 of a population that doesn't experience reality the same way I do. So your family can even become a microcosm for the macrocosm, right? So your family, if they're different, and my family's very different elementally, it can become an example of, like, some people ride the wave very easily and some people really struggle. And then we can try to give more support to people who struggle, and acknowledge and say, okay, this person is having trouble. They're really stuck on the stage of denial, still there, right? Or they're really stuck in anger. They cannot get beyond their anger. They're just so mad. But why? There could be a lot going on there. Something can interrupt the development at this stage, which makes it impossible to move through. The goal is to have kind of a seamless transition from denial through anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. But it takes understanding, and that's why I think it's really important. We are not all the same. We are blood and bone and muscle and tendon and nerve, right? But at the end of the day, I'm a different person than you are. What makes me cry might not make you cry, and what makes you super mad might just fly right over my head. I was having this conversation with a friend of mine. We were talking about how in both of our families, some people in our families have had to go to therapy for things that others in our families barely noticed. Like, mom said this one thing to somebody and they ended up in therapy about it, and I heard it and I thought it was a joke. I mean, it's just like, have you ever had that experience in your family where it's like, wow, I'm so sad that was such a profound experience for you, because I heard it too, but I just kind of, it just went over my head. And it's because I may process something that somebody says completely differently. And again, I want to bring you back to the beginning of this conversation tonight, which is why I talked about case in point teaching. It's really important to recognize that every single person that you talk to is going to receive what you say differently. Now, you can't control that, but you can be mindful of it and do your best to be aware that people process things really differently. And it's all a result of this alchemy of who they are and their astrological profile, and where they're living, and what their surroundings are. And the more compassion we can bring to that and wisdom, the more powerful that becomes. And then here's where the real like mind blown mic drop moment comes. You ready? Every generation has a different Pluto placement, right? Those of us who were born in these pods, these 3, 4, 10-year windows, we all have roughly the same constitution on some of these things. So we came in together to help each other. Generations may not understand each other, but people born in 73, 74, 72, we came in to help each other. We are very much more kindred to each other. It really raises these questions of are people meant to partner with people their age? I mean, I didn't. I married a child. He sure was cute, though. He was legal when I married him, but barely. So I married a younger man. But so he and I have very different, profiles for all of these outer planets. So we approach change and we approach all of these things very differently. Does it make a case? I'm just putting the question out there. Does it make a case for partnering with people more your age? Because we all kind of came in at the same time, and we have some of these outer planets are in the same place. It's fascinating, isn't it? I'd still marry him. Depends on which planet we're talking about, the age brackets. See, Lauren married someone 21 years older. Dave was 20. Well, he turned 21 when we first were together. Oh yeah. How are the different elements affected with acceptance? Well, let's talk about that for a second. Acceptance, right, which is the final stage. Which is Pluto, right? So we talked about refusing to transform and grow. And so Earth signs breeze through acceptance. Fire signs are challenged by acceptance. Water signs have an easier time with acceptance. Again, they understand flow and transience. Air signs kind of understand the come and the go. Fire signs always think they can change it. There's nothing in my life fundamentally, there's nothing in my life that I don't think I can change. Does that make me crazy? I think I can change anything at any time if I don't like it. I don't think I'm accurate in that, but if you are trying to get me to accept something as a fire sign, I'm going to be like, forget that. I can change it. I can fix it. I can solve it. I can shift it. And that's part of my magic, right, as a fire sign. But it's also part of my frustration, because some things I can't change, even though I think I can. And so again, it's becoming self-aware, okay, there are some things I can't change. No matter what I do, I can't, this is Pluto, I can't make this not be a pandemic. You know what I mean? I've had dreams that I've changed it, I've been, but I can't. So I think the fire signs resist more than any of the other. Now my Pluto's in Libra, so I'm a little bit more go with the flow. But my overall profile as a fire sign, I still think I can change things. I always do. I can fix this, I can change it, right? But there is some fundamental part of me that I think that Pluto in Libra is how I've gotten through this pandemic, because I'm not that worried. I really feel like we're going to be okay. But it's a transition, and it will be a different reality on the other side of it, no matter how you slice it. Am I fundamentally worried about humanity? No. Some people are. I'm not. Because I've seen the other side of it in plant ceremony. I know there is another side of this that we will get to. It's just when will we get there? But I'm not worried. Do I still wish I could change it? Yes, I do. I know I can. Yeah, no, I hear you, Nancy. It's true. And one of my teachers that I'm working with right now, who I adore, her children are not, she has grown children, and they're not quarantining, so, and she can't risk it, so she doesn't get to see her grown children or her grandchildren, and it's really hard for her. And when I talk to her, it's just massive compassion. I can't imagine. I mean, my kids are not grown. Her kids are twice the age of mine. But it's a real wound, you know? When is the question? That's right. So that is the cycle of emotional response to change from a priestessing perspective through the lens of astrology, which I hope you enjoyed. I wish, when I used to teach change management, which I used to teach to graduate students back at the University of San Diego, I actually taught a whole seminar on the cycles of change, with all the big theories out of Harvard and the big business schools, and it's a fascinating subject. Honestly, we didn't talk about anything that much more interesting in those seminars than we talked about tonight, and I actually think the astrological stuff is really juicy. I wish I could have taught it this way in a university class, because I actually think they would have been way more into it. But this is basically the cycle of change. And the more you can learn to recognize it, then you'll learn to go, okay, I'm in this stage. You know what I mean? I'm in denial, I'm in anger, I'm in bargaining right now. I think collectively we're at the bargaining stage, and I think you've got lots of evidence from media and other places, Facebook in particular. You can see people bargaining. I think soon we'll be reaching more of a depression phase where it's like, okay, this is where we are. I don't think there's anything I can do about it. And then ultimately we move to the acceptance phase. And I think if you can recognize what's happening to you, you can actually move directly from bargaining to acceptance. I don't think you have to sit and mulch yourself or marinate yourself in sorrow. But I think some people will, because I don't think that they are that aware. So my goal with you tonight, sorry, it's a Diet Coke break. My goal with you tonight was to lead you toward a place of deeper self-awareness. Once you sort this for you, then you can sort this with your family. It was Eleanor's first class. How was this as a first class? Welcome, by the way, to all of you who are new. Once you sort this for yourself, then sort this for your family. And then sort this in your community, because I can see like people in my community where they're at with it. Then you can start to look at Facebook from a kind of an objective perspective and sort where people are. I hope it was a really good first class for you guys. I hopefully, I think it at least was very practical for you, and relevant hopefully to the circumstances that we're going through. So, but I think we should try to move past the depression phase. It's not that I want you to skip a step of your experience, but I don't think you have to linger there. And I don't think there's cause for depression right now. I think there's cause for optimism. And I think the more people who can come forward with voices of confidence, voices of hope, not in an insincere way, you know what I mean? Like, this is a very challenging time for people, and I don't want to pretend like it's not. But I do think that we can have a voice of confidence and hope and optimism to help people recognize, ultimately we will get to the acceptance phase. The sooner we get there, because the acceptance phase is an action phase of its own. It helps us move towards solutions. The sooner we can get to the acceptance phase, I think, the more powerful that would be. So Melissa, we're going to talk about both aspects of Lilith when we get together for session 3. That's going to be the focus of session 3. The main reason I chose Lilith is what I was focusing on, which is that she does represent our refusal to tolerate, on some level, our refusal to tolerate less than we deserve. And I don't see that as shadow as so much as equity. You know, on some level, each one of us, the path to sovereignty begins where we say, I want to be treated with respect as an equal, in acknowledgement of what I bring to the table. And what I've noticed for a lot of people is they focus on their light aspects and all the things that they love about themselves and about each other, and that's great to do. But part of the deeper work that I'm trying to do with Soulship this year is also to get you to recognize, and it'll help people stop perceiving spiritual folks as kind of gaslighting too. Do you know what I mean? Is that there's another side to all of it. A lot of us are angry. A lot of us have been treated without the respect that we deserve. A lot of us have had to overcome. A lot of us have a lot of latent grief and rage and resentment. And in order to heal and really become who we fully are, at some point we have to deal with that. We have to integrate that. It's not going anywhere. And we need to stop trying to smoke it, drink it, eat it, shop it, buy it, sex it. You know what I mean? Like, that's all a way of kind of pretending like we're dealing with it. But the reality is, the ultimate dealing with it is saying, that's who I am too. I am also that. I am also that person who gets angry and has been treated unfairly and has been resentful and jealous, and and all of that lives within me too. And I'm not trying to pretend it's not there, and I'm not trying to wash it away, and I'm not trying to paint it a different color or tell you that you don't see that or any of that, right? So I'm trying to deal with duality in a really intentional way this month. And for me, Lilith represents wisdom and power and equity, and also the acknowledgement that underneath all of that sometimes can be these other emotions that we have to reconcile. And I say that as someone who spent time, especially in my 20s, trying to just maybe I'm the only one who's angry. Maybe I'm the only one who's sad. Maybe I'm the only one who's resentful. Maybe I'm the only one who's pissed. It's like, I don't think so. And then when we process it not only for ourselves, but we process it for other generations. I don't think my grandmother's, I don't know for sure, right? I mean, I know my maternal grandmother more than my paternal grandmother. But I know what their lives were like, and I know that they didn't have the luxury, I guess you would call it, of really doing a lot of this processing. So I think a lot of it the buck got passed down the generations, and I feel like a lot of what I spend my time doing, this may not be true for you, but I spend a lot of my time kind of mulching this lineage stuff, of my grandmother, who must have been angry when her husband went off to war and left her there with 6 kids, and their village was completely bombed out, and she had no way to feed them, and he wasn't coming back. And I mean, I don't know how I would feel, but she must have been angry. And yet at the same time, with 6 kids under the age of 12, she probably just had to put that somewhere and keep on trucking. And so, but there are times where I start crying in my life and I can't stop crying, and I know it's not my grief. And so I feel this well of stuff come up. And my goal in this lifetime truly is to find a way to integrate that so it's just all part of what's in my cauldron. And I'm not trying to repress it or deny it, but I'm saying, okay, this is there, and working through all of that. And so Lilith for me is this opportunity to own it a little bit. More than I find with some of the other goddesses. You know what I mean? I think Lilith represents that. I can't imagine. My dad talks about the day that the truck came to take them. Their village had been bombed. He just told me about this like a year ago. And he said, I really remember I must have been 3 years old. So kids would have been 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13, and because they went up that way. And so he said, I remember being 3 years old, and they got everything into the truck, whatever they had left. It was like a chair and it was something else. And he said, I remember they sat my mom up on top of the furniture and the clothes and everything, and then they handed me to my mom to hold. And he said, I remember like being on the truck and bouncing on her lap while we drove away, and kind of, he said, I remember everybody looking back, you know, at like what they were leaving behind. And I can't even imagine, you know. So this is just a very personal example of like, we all have this, you know, we all have stuff that sits somewhere in the psyche, in the subconscious, and at some point the work begins of, I mean, unless you just want to take it to the next generation, you know what I mean, and let them do it, which some people do. Like, oh, I can kick that can down the road, and maybe my nieces and nephews or my grandchildren or whatever, they'll deal with it. But I kind of feel like I'm ready now to pick up some of that stuff and go, okay, what were you feeling? How was that? You know, how did you feel towards your husband? How did you feel towards your kids? You know, like, how did you feel? What was that about? And then, because what I realized is that's me. It lives in me, right? So, all right, you guys, I'm going to sign off. I hope tonight was a good first entree into the work of the month ahead. I say we do it now. So next week is Crystal Masters, where we're studying the Platonic solids. I get to teach you about Plato and sacred geometry, and I'm very excited for that. And then week 3, we are doing an integration journey, where we're going to take all your light and all your dark, and we're gonna mulch it together, and we're gonna alchemize all of those energies into one unified field of consciousness. And then session 4, we're making besoms. Aren't they cute? So you got your little besom with your Hecate charm and your moon charm and your starry ribbons. So that's what all of this jazz is about in your kit. And I think that'll be the perfect tool to sweep away all of the energies and prepare for the new year at Samhain. So, cheers. I'm so glad. I enjoyed this class with you too. I really did. And my team and I really were collectively excited for our content this month, because what we realized is we're all doing this together. And there's no better time than now. So we're making perfume on session 3 before our journey. So make sure you have your oils and everything with you then. And we'll be burning our incense before that journey too. So your perfumes and your incense are for session 3. And your besom and your charms. I didn't light my candle tonight, and I meant to, but I've already lit it once. I'm obsessed with the candle from this kit. I hope you're loving it too. It's this one. When I saw the little jars come in, my heart skipped a beat. I think we did a good job with this month's kit. So anyway, that is my favorite soul shift candle of the year. Looks like a little owl. Isn't that cute? So anyway, enjoy your tools, and we'll pick up with Crystal Masters next week. All right, you guys. Mwah. I will see you soon. Have a great rest of your evening, everybody.